Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Cindy Clement. I'm going to be both your host and the presenter this evening because our friend Craig is in Raleigh, North Carolina, participating in corporate planning for 2023, so he won't be joining us tonight. I've been involved in health and healing for more than 4 decades now. I can't even believe I'm saying that. And education is truly my passion. In fact, right at this moment, my graduate students are in the midst of completing their finals. So in a couple of weeks, a whole new group of health-minded young people will be entering the field from the university. So I'm pretty excited about that. Oh dear, hold on. I always do this. I have to try and figure out how to click here. Here we go. All right. So I thought this image would be good for this evening. This is about my foot. About 5 years ago, I walked out into the garage. Of course, I was in a big hurry, and I slipped and fell on some ice and landed on my ankle. Look at the size of my ankle. So I thought this would be a really good image to share as we discuss tonight bodily discomfort and irritation, as it's called. So yeah, that's what we're up to tonight. And then along with that, what I want to talk about is discussing anti-inflammatory foods, because they truly are the best approach to helping us with that discomfort and irritation. According to Harvard University, the foods you eat, as well as the foods that you don't eat, can determine how well your body fights this discomfort and irritation. And your diet is the best way to control it. Now, by now, you all know that chronic inflammation is linked to cancer and heart disease and diabetes and arthritis and, oh my goodness, movement disorders, Alzheimer's, even GERD. I mean, just so many things. And when chronic inflammation becomes a serious problem, what it does is it stops your body from working as well as it could, and it contributes to other problems down the line. Now, there are other factors that contribute to this chronic inflammatory condition in the body, such as stress or lack of exercise. It can be your genetic predisposition. It can be a lack of sleep. Certainly, diet plays a part, as well as exposure to toxins. In fact, inflammation is the body's immune response to toxins as it works to purify itself. Now, did you know, though, that inflammation has both a good guy, bad guy role in our health? So, for instance, when we're injured or we get infections, our bodies signal the immune system to send white blood cells to that affected area and repair the injury or fight the infection or the virus or whatever. And then when the injury heals or the infection goes away, inflammation normally goes away too. However, sometimes our immune system gets turned on, and it stays turned on even after the crisis has passed. So how does diet fit into all of this? Well, your diet can help support your immune system by having it turn on and off at appropriate times. So, of course, a poor diet is going to alter that immune system so it acts abnormally, and then it actually keeps contributing to that low-grade inflammatory condition in the body. And in fact, some studies have found that the immune system, this is very interesting, I think, that the immune system reacts to an unhealthy diet in the same way as it responds to a bacterial infection. So this immune system is all part of this inflammatory condition in the body, our discomfort, as well as this irritation in the body. Now, according to the University of Maryland School of Medicine, an anti-inflammatory diet can help to combat those immune signals by both preventing and reducing that discomfort and irritation, because an anti-inflammatory diet focuses on staying away from those specific foods that are known to increase inflammation. And then when staying away from those foods, it helps to decrease that discomfort over time. And so, of course, looking at the picture at the top one anyway, you can see that that daily diet is going to incorporate a lot of plants, fruits and vegetables and whole grains and nuts and seeds and things like that. The strongest scientific evidence, however, suggests that foods rich in a group of antioxidants known as polyphenols. Remember, we did a webinar presentation on antioxidants, and we learned all about these polyphenols. These polyphenols can have an anti-inflammatory effect that helps to soothe and prevent flare-ups of that discomfort and irritation. And of course, the foods include many of the staples of an anti-inflammatory diet. They include many of the staples of the Mediterranean diet, which is whole fruits, especially the berries, the dark green leafy vegetables, and other brightly colored vegetables, the nuts, legumes, and even those whole grains. Now, chronic inflammation in the body signifies that there is generally a problem somewhere. And so if you're eating foods that are considered inflammatory, such as fried foods or sugary foods or processed foods, these could be the reason that you're feeling that discomfort or irritation. So, of course, the best dietary approach is to cut out all the bad inflammatory foods and adopt more of those good anti-inflammatory foods. So in order to combat that discomfort in the body, we need to reduce. Now, I'm not saying eliminate completely, but we need to reduce and really cut down on those sweets, which is the time of year that I'm telling you this. But again, moderation. One of my earliest teachers in the 70s was Dr. Bernard Jensen. I'm sure some of you know who that is. And he would tell us it's not what you do once in a while that's going to make or break your health. It's what you do the majority of the time. So here's the holiday season. I will probably have more sweets than I do the entire year, but it's not what I do once in a while that's going to make or break my health or yours. So just consider, trying to reduce the amount of sweets, your candies, ice creams, pastries, cakes, cookies, donuts, you get it, as well as the sweetened drinks like milkshakes and sweetened teas and coffees and all of those types of things. And think of these refined grains that are in our pancakes and our white bread and buns and crackers and white rice and all of those sweetened cereals. And then also reducing some of those trans fats and saturated fats that we get a lot of in commercial baked goods or fried foods or processed meat or these, tropical oils such as palm oil. So again, we want to reduce those. But here's a great experiment. If the New Year's coming and everybody makes their New Year's resolution, I challenge you just for the month of January, just for 1 month, to go on an anti-inflammatory diet. And as you reduce the sweets and the refined foods and the other things that we're going to talk about, do it for a month and then add them back in and see what your discomfort level or that irritation level is. Because there are even more things we have to consider in an anti-inflammatory diet, and that would be those what we call ultra processed foods that have those long lists of additives and colors and preservatives and things like that. And if you drink alcohol, to limit yourself to no more than 1 drink if you're female or 2 drinks if you're male. And any amount after that is no longer beneficial, and it actually promotes inflammation in the body. And so, in all honesty, it might be fun to experiment with those mocktails, as they call them, if or when you get a craving. Of course, it's not the same but it's just something to play with. Think of it as just a big experiment, just to see how you feel. Oftentimes I have my clients keep a food journal, and I tell them, just eat things in moderation, or do a whole month without those foods and add them in and see how you feel. Some people might write that in their journal that after dairy, their joints ache, or they might write that, after refined grains that they have gut problems. So it's just something to really to think about. Now, the good news is that an anti-inflammatory diet can help reduce that discomfort in your body. But reducing that comfort is also going to involve some exercise, some stress reduction, detoxification, a healthy weight, a healthy gut microbiome, and then getting enough to drink to hydrate that body. So let's talk first about that anti-inflammatory diet. And what we're told is to eat the rainbow. And that's another thing Dr. Bernard Jensen taught us in the 70s. I know today everybody's saying, eat the rainbow, eat the rainbow. And we've known that. It's nothing new. We've known that since the 70s. So eating the rainbow, brightly colored fruits and vegetables, and not Skittles. And the anti-inflammatory diet actually suggests 8 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. But before you panic, a serving size is anywhere from 4 ounces. Think of an ounce letter. 4 of those. So it's not really it's not cupfuls. It's measured in ounces. So 4 to 6 ounces. If it's a leafy green, it's more like a 6 ounce, but 8 to 9 servings a day. And then the anti-inflammatory diet suggests eating dairy products in limited quantities because it can kind of work up that chronic inflammation in the body. And then when it comes to grains, opting for things like oats and quinoa and brown rice, for example. And then it's suggested that we eat meat. And I'm quoting what I read on Harvard's site. It says, eat red meat the way most of us are eating turkey right now, meaning twice a year. So have it on very special occasions, have red meat very infrequently. Now, chicken and fish are neutral. They're not harmful, but they're also not beneficial. So they're just kind of neutral foods, but red meat definitely can start to create that inflammatory process in the body. Now, according to pain management specialists, getting regular exercise, working on your stress, learning to let it go, eating healthy foods, they all work together to reduce inflammation and that chronic discomfort and irritation. And when I think of the stress management, letting things go, it's kind of a quick story, but my granddaughter, my 16-year-old granddaughter, got me a ticket to Taylor Swift. So I'm going to go to a Taylor Swift concert. And she said, Grandma, you've got to start listening to her music so that you can sing and dance in the concert. So I have been. And I know one of the songs that I had heard before is Shake It Off. And it's cute because it's just shake it off, let that stress go. Easier said than done sometimes, I know, but learning to let it go. I've given you that link to the University of Wisconsin Integrative Medicine website in previous webinars. And on that website, in their modules, they have a whole section on stress reduction with breathing techniques and visualization techniques or journaling, all the things to kind of work on that stress management. Now, of course, research shows that exercise should be an integral part of daily living, especially as we begin to age. And exercise can actually counter inflammation in the body by increasing those brain chemicals such as endorphins, and they help us feel less discomfort or irritation in our body. And also, when we exercise, our blood vessels expand, which then increases blood flow and clears out inflammation that can cause that discomfort and irritation. Now, of course, as we mentioned, where am I? On mental health. Oh, that was supposed to be the slide for the exercise. You get it, right? Let's go to the mental health one. It's just a different picture. Mental health can play, I got all excited about Taylor Swift. What can I say? Mental health can play a major role in this chronic discomfort and irritation in our body, because these conditions like anxiety or depression, they are associated with chronic irritation because of that persistent concern, that persistent rumination, thinking about the discomfort that the conditions can cause, and it starts that whole cycle. The mind-body stress management techniques, again, such as the breathing exercises or mindfulness meditation or even yoga, have been shown to help reduce that chronic discomfort and irritation, again, by inducing that relaxation response in the body. Now, weight loss on its own is anti-inflammatory. So if there's any extra weight you may be carrying, try to get down to an ideal weight. And again, January 1st is coming. People make lots of different resolutions. So perhaps yours is to get down to a healthy weight, not what you weighed in high school, but a healthy weight, a normal weight. Because if you're overweight or obese and you have currently a chronic degenerative disease, you can experience more discomfort than someone with the same chronic degenerative disease who's at a healthier weight. Isn't that interesting? And that's because inflammation is strongly linked to body fat, and it can cause or worsen the discomfort of these chronic degenerative diseases. So another goal that you might want to consider is to just avoid further weight gain if weight loss proves to be too difficult for you. So there's always something that we can try. Now, as mentioned, inflammation is the body's immune response to toxins as it works to purify itself. And when it comes to the microbiome, how can food reduce discomfort? Well, think about it. We're working with the immune system, right? Inflammation comes from that immune system. Well, 75% of our immune system is housed in our gut. And scientists know and are still continuing to discover that our gut microbiome plays an important role in the sensations of discomfort or irritation in our bodies. So again, think about that brain-gut connection that we've talked about so many times and how it's a bidirectional. So if our gut's a mess, it talks to the brain's a mess. Likewise, if the brain's a mess, it talks to the gut, and the gut's a mess. So we really have to think of our bodies as a whole unit with all these different parts and pieces, but they all clearly work together. Now, the microbiome is the ecosystem in your gut that lines your large intestine, and it contains all kinds of beneficial organisms that help your immune system. And when you eat inflammatory foods, your microbiome becomes inflamed and starts sending signals to the brain and nervous system that can promote that chronic discomfort and irritation that we feel in the body. And in addition to that irritation and discomfort, imbalances in that microbiome can also lead, as you know by now, to chronic degenerative diseases and as well as depression or anxiety. But we also must hydrate. We have to drink plenty of water because that can help to decrease inflammation because water is part of the cleansing process. And it's very helpful with inflammation because it helps organs that are stressed by inflammatory conditions to function better. And if a person has inflammation and they are dehydrated, this is going to impact organ function negatively and further stress the organ that's already impacted by that inflammation. So ultimately, what we need to know is that inflammation comes from a biochemical reaction initiated by our immune system, and specific foods can promote or shut down that inflammatory cycle. For instance, simple carbohydrates and sugars promote that inflammation, whereas plant foods shut it down. So putting that right food combination into the diet can produce remarkable results. So which foods should we eat? Well, we need our fruit, such as our berries and strawberries and apples and things like that. We definitely need our green leafy vegetables, and we need our healthy fats. According to the Department of Nutritional Sciences at the University of Arizona, these foods, these fruits and vegetables, or all the foods that you see on this slide, provide important anti-inflammatory nutrients, such as antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and then those polyphenols that we were talking about. So let's first start with the fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are loaded with antioxidants that act as the body's natural defense system, and they help to neutralize those unstable molecules that are called free radicals. And free radicals damage our cells. In January, we're actually going to do a presentation on damaged cells and what we can do about that. So watch for that. Completely different. It's almost like a coded word, but we've got some unchecked cell growth and damaged cells that we need to work with in January. So again, back to this. Research has shown that the antioxidant called anthocyanin, which is found in very deep red and purple foods, like strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, dark grapes, they all have anti-inflammatory effects. In fact, the darker and more brilliant the color, the more antioxidants it has. And that's the whole thing behind eating that rainbow diet. Now, research also suggests that eating veggies like broccoli and spinach and kale and cabbage, they can dramatically reduce those inflammatory markers that are found in our bloodstream. And next, we've got nuts and seeds. Nuts are jam-packed with inflammation-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. And according to the Center on Aging at Tufts University in Boston, multiple studies confirm the role of nuts in an anti-inflammatory diet. In fact, one study found that over a 15-year period, they followed these men and women. After 15 years, the men and women who consumed the most nuts had a 51% lower risk of dying from an inflammatory disease compared with those who ate the fewest nuts. And another study found that subjects with the lowest levels of vitamin B6, and remember, vitamin B6 is mostly found in nuts, so the subjects with the lower levels of vitamin B6 had higher levels of inflammatory markers. So this goes back to just really getting more of these plant foods into our life. And although nuts are really relatively high in fat and calories, studies show that people who eat nuts actually helps to maintain their weight because of the protein, the fiber, and the fat found in nuts create this satiety so that there's less craving of snack foods and things like that. One study found that those who had the highest consumption of omega-3 fatty acid had lower levels of inflammatory proteins. And the two proteins that they were specifically talking about, which, by the way, you can have tested in your bloodstream. In a regular test, a non-fasting blood test, you can ask your doctor for C-reactive protein. It's also called CRP for short. When that number shows high in the body, it indicates that there's an inflammatory process. So you wouldn't want to have that test done if you had, a virus or bacteria or something like that, because it would be high. Because remember how inflammation increases our white blood cell count? So have the CRP, the C-reactive protein test, your blood test done when you're feeling your best, and see what your inflammatory level is in the body. And the higher it is, the more inflammation there is. There's another blood test that you can have called interleukin 6. Interleukin 6. And between those two, you can determine how much inflammation is found in your body. So I just love that. My physician has been testing our CRP for close to, since about maybe 1994. So 30 years almost, we've been testing that. So I always know, is there any inflammation in my body? I like to know that. Now, most recently, researchers have shown that taking omega-3 fatty acid foods helps reduce joint swelling, discomfort, irritation. And on top of that, it was shown to reduce that duration of morning stiffness that some people have if they're in an arthritic state. So morning stiffness, tenderness, and swelling are very, very responsive in a positive way to omega-3 fatty acids. But what about grains and legumes? Well, it's best to choose the high fiber whole grains and legumes because they're digested more slowly. They have a low glycemic index, which means that it helps to keep the blood sugar levels steady, because when the blood sugar goes up, inflammation goes up. So along with fiber, legumes and whole grains can also provide plant protein, which is wonderful. And of course, when choosing our grains, we want to stay away from those simple carbohydrates with refined sugars. And we want to opt for things like oats and quinoa and brown rice and things like that. Now, back to this anti-inflammatory diet, the research shows that when you move from the typical American diet to a Mediterranean style diet, which again is an anti-inflammatory diet, it can help to reduce that chronic discomfort and irritation in the body. And interestingly, a magnesium deficiency has been linked to the systemic inflammation in the body. And many Americans do not get enough of this mineral. It's found in nuts and dark leafy greens and whole grains and beans. Well, I know a lot of people that don't want to eat nuts that say, oh, it hurts my teeth, or they're too expensive, or there's too much fat in them. They don't realize that the fat is so good. Look at that walnut in the picture. It looks like a brain, doesn't it? And it feeds our brain those omega-3 fatty acids. And then again, the magnesium is in dark leafy greens. Well, people don't eat dark leafy greens. They don't eat whole grains. They eat refined grains. They don't eat legumes. It gives me gas, that kind of a thing. So up to 50% of the U.S. population, by the way, is magnesium deficient because they're not getting these foods adequately in their diet. So what we want to do is we want to choose by color. Dr. Bernard Jensen, back to him, he used to tell us that most people eat a beigey brown diet. There's no color in their diet. There's no rainbow in their diet. They get up in the morning and they have beigey brown coffee, beigey brown toast, beigey brown cereal. And then at lunch, they have a beigey brown sandwich with, the bread, the meat, and they might have beigey brown chips with it or something like that, and a beigey brown soda. And then at dinner, they have, more meat. And it's just, they don't get the color. He called it the beigey brown diet. But if you think about it, things like carotenoids, which you find in yellow and orange and red fruits and veggies, carotenoids reduce inflammation, and flavonoids inhibit the enzymes in our body that promote inflammation. And we can get flavonoids in berries and cocoa and tea and even in apples. And so we can also help our body naturally produce its own omega-3 fatty acids by consuming things like flax seeds and chia seeds. And there's even small amounts of omega-3 fatty acids in leafy vegetables. So the fruits listed on this slide, of course, the fruits with inflammatory properties include all of these things on the slide and probably more, but how on earth would you consume 15 different fruits a day. Folks, you know by now it's a whole lot easier and more convenient with a daily serving of super green juice or taking your essentials. This is where you're going to get these lovely fruits and berries. Acerola, blackcurrant, blueberry, cranberry, goji berry, lohan berry, pomegranate, raspberry, strawberry, grapes, acai, mango, blackberries, and lemon. Wow. I mean, that's just amazing to get the nutrients out of that many fruits and berries. Now, when it comes to dark leafy greens, yeah, people eat some spinach, they eat some kale, but yet dandelion and kelp and spirulina are also excellent inflammation-fighting foods that people rarely consume. But no worries, once again, they're all found in super green juice essentials as well as super greens plus D. And how about getting those good fats in your diet, such as chia, flax, pumpkin seeds, and things like that? Oh, and then again, as we mentioned before, these plants also contain protein and fiber. But how many of these foods do you really eat on a daily basis? Are you eating Sasha Inchi? I'm not. Are you eating it every day? You don't have to. You can find all of these superfoods in Wellspring as well as organic super protein. Now, we also want to get those wholesome grains and legumes. But again, how often are you cooking whole grains or cooking legumes to include them in your daily diet? You don't have to worry about that either, because you can consume the whole grains and legumes by getting pea, rice, millet, amaranth, and quinoa in organic super protein. Finally, it's well known that human exposure to certain toxicants can result in adverse health effects, and that chronic inflammatory states subsequently will develop. For instance, herbicides and pesticides can harm the gut microbes and therefore increase the toxic inflammatory burden in the body. So suffice it to say that we need daily detoxification for optimal health. So don't forget to include the Pure Body products in your daily regime, as well as fulvic minerals plus. So now you know the importance of these anti-inflammatory foods to reduce that discomfort and irritation in our body, and that supplementing with Touchstone Essentials products can help to keep that inflammation down. And you know that Touchstone Essentials products can not only supply those specific nutrients, but they can also help you achieve a better state of mind. They can aid you in your weight loss. They can give you more energy. They can increase the effectiveness of your exercise and even help you get a good night's rest. So folks, that concludes our webinar this evening. And again, our next presentation on December 15th, just 1 week from tonight, so we can all take a break for the holiday. I know I'll be visiting my family in California, but 1 week from tonight, we're going to discuss why you might want to consider reducing the amount of animal foods in our presentation on plant-based diets. And we're going to learn why so many young people are moving more and more to vegetarianism, or at least a more plant-based diet. And we're not advocating that you all become vegetarian, but cutting down on animal foods may be important for our health, for the environment, as well as for our wallet, because as you know, the prices of meat just keep going up and up. So have a great night, everyone. We'll meet you back here in 1 week. Thank you so much for attending. Good night.